Hello and welcome to NewsWatch with me, Samira Ahmed. Presenters outside Parliament are now wearing the type of headset more often seen on pop stars. Has this satisfied those complaining of noisy protesters disrupting outside broadcasts? And will the Andrew Neil show, just launched on BBC Two, get the big political hitters on and offer any clarity about the business of Brexit? One way you can tell the levels of excitement and drama at Westminster is by counting the number of temporary structures put up by broadcasters on College Green, opposite the Houses of Parliament. This week we seem to be getting pretty near to peak gazebo, with journalists jostling for space, MPs scurrying from interview to interview, and of course the noisy presence of protesters representing all shades of opinion. We've discussed before on NewsWatch how some viewers find the presence of protesters distracting and annoying, and there were more objections this week, following moments such as this.
To a date that they choose, and I think that's bonkers.
Right, that's not what it is.
No, I read it. I read it this morning.
If I can, I'm not sure if viewers at home can see our next guest as well. We've got Alison McGovern, who's a Labour MP. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
There are so many divisions going on here, but let's just be really clear. What are you going to vote for today?
I'm going to vote to stop no deal.
Melanie Cox was one of a number of viewers to respond in this way. What on earth is the point of bringing news from outside Parliament when you can't concentrate on what is being said due to a single person shouting over most of the broadcast? Please do better. This is nonsense. If the broadcast had technical interference, you would stop it. To me, it's the same thing. And Robert Loades added his thoughts on video.
My point is that I feel that the BBC, by broadcasting from Parliament Square during this Brexit debate, are fueling the animosity between the two sides. Both sides are only there in these big numbers because of the TV cameras. The BBC should move away from Parliament Green so that we can actually get the reports without having the interruptions from the Brexiteers and from the Remain side.
By Tuesday evening, a partial solution to the noise problem had been found, with the BBC following Sky's lead in using headset microphones, so-called Madonna mics, in the style of pop stars or sports commentators. The head of BBC Westminster, Katie Searle, said the intention was not to block out the background noise entirely. We had to look at how we mic the presenters and the guests, she said. It can be quite intrusive, but you also want to capture where you are. The problem is when it's too loud to capture what the guests are saying. But on Thursday's News at 10, it seemed that the new microphones weren't excluding quite as much background noise as some might have wished.
We look as if a no-deal Brexit is very real as a possibility, and the coming election could be vindication or a backfire very, very badly. If it's a cunning plan, there are those, and certainly some of those who are in government and around the Conservative Party, who believe that plan may just need to go back to the drawing board.
Some very vocal protesters, not many of them here tonight, but certainly making their feelings known.
Work to be done there, perhaps. And some, such as this telephone caller, remain unconvinced about the value or necessity of broadcasting from College Green, new microphones or not.
Why do they have to be sitting outside with, looks like, sports commentators' microphones, put it in a studio?
Now, it is, of course, a bonanza time for political programmes. Question Time returned on Thursday for its new series a week earlier than scheduled. And Wednesday also saw the launch 2 weeks before it was planned of The Andrew Neil Show. The timing of this new vehicle for the much-feared veteran interviewer was unfortunate. As it went on air at 7 o'clock, MPs were voting on proposals to rule out a no-deal Brexit and so could not appear live in the studio. As a result, these two interviews with Chief Secretary to the Treasury Rishi Sunak and the Shadow Housing Secretary John Healey were conducted down the line and pre-recorded.
Preparing for no deal, making sure that our borders are ready, our customs are ready.
I understand all that. That's not what I'm. Are you hearing the questions that I'm asking you?
Well, I'm just trying to get to it. You're asking about the future.
We've got a government with no majority in Parliament now.
I understand that, but
the executive and Parliament deadlocked.
I'm sorry, John Healey. I understand that, but that's the rhetoric. I'm trying to pin down to what's happening.
Some, like David Herman, were underwhelmed with that lineup of interviewees. How did it happen that the guests on Andrew Neil's first show tonight were Rishi Sunak and John Healey? Are the big names running away? Frit from Andrew Neil. And Alan Lane had another concern. I know it's de rigueur to applaud Andrew Neil's forceful persistence, but watching his first show, I can't help but think his refusal to accept nuance or compromise in his guests' answering is a contributing factor to how everyone just keeps chuntering the same at each other. Others were more complimentary, with Raj Kumar advising, every politician should have to be questioned by Andrew Neil, as he really knows how to stop them getting away with the usual bluster and deflection they always attempt. But a Twitter user called Captain Sapper thought, the show felt threadbare and rushed. Give us back this week. Well, I'm joined now by the BBC's editor of live political programmes, Rob Burley. Robert Peston on ITV did have the Prime Minister that night, but not Andrew Neil. You had two quite minor figures, not a great start.
Oh, I think minor figures is unfair. I mean, we had the Chief Secretary of the Treasury on a day with a major economic statement. We had a member of the Shadow Cabinet who's, close to Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, yeah, obviously I congratulate the Peston programme for getting the Prime Minister that night, an established show, but it's interesting to me that if you look at the ratings, more people watched our show with Andrew Neil than that show with the Prime Minister. So I think there's a big draw for people coming to watch Andrew Neil. In a time of extraordinary politics, they want what many regard as the best interview in the business to hold people to account. So that's what happened. And I think also obviously it's about big names and big figures. That's part of politics, but also the issues and the questions are really the most important things. And I think what we sought to do is trying to establish kind of where we were on a few things on that very dramatic night.
Aren't there too many political programmes on TV and radio chasing the same guests?
No, I don't think that's right. I mean, there's lots of news programmes happening during the day. There are different kind of interviews to political programmes. Which are more considered and at length. I mean, the interview with Rishi Sunak was 15 minutes long. So I think that's something that's offered at the weekend by Andrew Marr, fantastically. We offer a different kind of programme on politics live in the day. But I don't think it's crowded in terms of political interviews at length with fantastic political interviewers. I think the time could not be more right to be doing that.
A lot of people, including yourself, have been talking about the style of Andrew Neil and his reputation. Yeah. Is there a danger that you're not going to get the big political names because people are too scared of him now?
No, I think he's respected hugely by politicians. I think there was a survey of who is the most respected broadcast journalist, or he may have been journalist in general, amongst the political class, and Andrew Neil's right up there, because they recognise that he knows the material, he's incredibly well briefed, and an encounter with him is also an opportunity for them to prove their mettle in an interview setting. I mean, if you recall a couple of months ago, we had interviews with Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt in the leadership race for the Conservative Party, and they both submitted themselves to the Andrew Neil interview. So we think, politicians know it's a serious place, know they'll get heard, but also know they'll be subject to questions. So I think we'll be fine.
It's an interesting point that Alan Lane, one of the viewers, made by email. Is Andrew Neil too often pushing for a simple answer when there might not be a simple answer?
No, I think you can't accuse Andrew Neil of dealing in sort of simplicity.
Sometimes.
I think what he does is what people want when they watch interviews with politicians, they want the answers. So what Andrew Neil does is when he spots that an answer is disingenuous or is not quite hitting the actual specific point that he's asked about, he will pick them up on it. And I think that's what we should be doing in a democracy, and that's what our role is. So I think there's more than one way to skin the cat when it comes to political interview styles. Different people have different techniques. Andrew has his own technique. Arguably, it's the most effective technique. Others would say there are different ways that they prefer. But I think, as the viewing figures showed, with very little pre-publicity, because we brought this forward by 2 weeks, people want to watch Andrew Neil interviewing people.
The Andrew Neil show launching on BBC Two comes after This Week, which he presented for all those years, was taken off air. Can you tell us a bit about why?
Very straightforward, really. This Week is a late night political show. That's its sensibility. It was a fantastic programme on air for more than 15 years. And its character was built into that slot on the schedule. Andrew Neil, for very understandable reasons, felt that it was time to stop doing a late night political show. So then the question was, what do we do? And we felt that in times like these, the very best vehicle for him now will be to do a programme like the one we're doing, the Andrew Neil Show, which is much more straight on politics, analysis, interviewing. So that was really how, once This Week wasn't possible anymore, that's why we've ended up with a different thing, which I think is, very different, but I think very important.
Rob Burley, thank you.
Thank you.
If The Andrew Neil Show is a brand new programme, Newsnight is in television terms a very old one, 40 next year. But this week it unveiled something of a new look with a different logo, a modified set and an updated version of the title music. Well, the rebrand enjoyed a mostly positive response, with a Twitter user called Mr. Celtic loving the updated Newsnight logo, complete with shocking pink and blue introduced against the updated background music's twanging, funky guitar. Daniel D. Moses thought it was a clever bit of a retro updating of the past titles and theme, feels more dramatic this week. But Natasha Bellamy disagreed. I'm not sure about the jazzed up tune or the new graphics. It seems like a 1990s rebrand. And for Robert Wilson, this new version of the Newsnight music is a bit in your face. Thank you for all your comments this week. Please get in touch with your opinions about what you see on BBC TV News, online or BBC social media. You may even get to appear on the programme. You can email newswatch@bbc.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter @NewsWatchBBC. You can call us on 0370 010 6676 and do have a look at previous discussions on our website bbc.co.uk/newswatch. That's all from us. We'll be back to hear your thoughts about BBC News coverage again next week. Goodbye.